Some people ask me, what do you believe in God for, Kev? You can't prove he exists. Where is he? Is he over here? Is he over there? Is he down the street? Is he on vacation in Paris? And sometimes they say things like, well, Kevin, if there's a God, what about those people in the Carolinas and Florida who suffered the two hurricanes recently? What about all the starving children in Africa? What about the victims of communism who are impoverished and suffering in Laos, Vietnam, and North Korea? People like that, it's not that their questions aren't important, but the questions are rather ignorant because they use it with the intent to try and get people not to believe in God or to advance skepticism about God. And this is just like what the Pharisees did. The Pharisees came to Jesus and asked him all sorts of questions. Why do you, if you are the Son of God, why do you dine with tax collectors and sinners and not us, the Pharisees? If you are the Lord, why are you healing on the Sabbath? You know, they asked all kinds of questions, not because they wanted to go closer to Jesus, because they were hoping to deflect him. They wanted to catch him off guard and confuse him. And that's the same mechanism that people are still using today. People say, oh, well, why is there poverty? Why are there wars? Why is there famine? Why is there racism? Why is there sexism? Why is there all this and that? God gives us mouths to speak, hands and feet to work, and he gives us wisdom. And we are to get down on our knees and pray to him and ask what we can do to help others. We don't just sit there, do nothing, and expect God to solve everything for us. We don't do that. We can't expect God to just make all of our lives easy like we're some guests at a five-star hotel. There are things we have to do ourselves. And by doing these things of ourselves, we learn. We gain wisdom, we gain experience, we gain knowledge, and we gain a relationship with God. Have I ever seen God with my own two eyes? No, I haven't. I am not a prophet like Noah or Moses who had a vision with him. I'm not. But I believe in God and I trust him. I have strong faith in him, and I have every reason to. God has been saving me since the moment I was born. When I was first born, I was almost 2 weeks late, and I almost choked to death on the umbilical cord. It took a whole minute for me to breathe. Before that, motionless. Then, when I was a year old in 1997, it was Christmas in 1997, my parents took me to my grandmother's house. She had a different stove at the time. It hardly had a ridge. It was pretty much just a flat opening with nothing to like guard it or anything, no guardrail. And I was playing with a cord, and the cord was next to a pot of boiling marinara sauce. The cord caused the pot to move, and it fell onto my legs, burning me third degree from the waist down. My uncle, in panic, turned on the sink and set it to very cold and bathed me in cold water. Not a very smart move, Uncle Chris. The result of that was that actually gave me hypothermia. So here I was as a 14-month-old boy with hypothermia and third-degree burns at the same time. And to this day, I wonder if that's where Katy Perry got the inspiration for her song Hot and Cold from. They had to take me to the hospital. First, they had to wrap me up in blankets to get my body temperature back up. And then when they did, they said by that point the burns had blistered. And they pretty much just had to grab them and peel them right off of me. Then, when I was 2, I was in the playroom at our old house in the town that I was spent the first few years of my life in, Westboro, Massachusetts. I live in Grafton, Massachusetts now. I've been living in Grafton most of my life. But when I lived in Westboro, I was 2 years old, and I was in the playroom, which is like a little porch connected to the house. I was playing with my trains, and I got up and walked out of the room, and 30 seconds later, a rock came catapulting through the window. We later found out that it was a teenage girl who was looking to get in trouble so she could go to alternative school with her friends because she didn't like public school, which she got in the end as punishment for this. But it was by the grace of God that I survived all three of those. And God has saved me countless times since. When I was 7 years old, I was at I want to say it was either the Solomon Pond Mall or the Auburn Mall. Keep in mind, this was I was like 7 years old, so this was 21 years ago. Just got the notification, 20% battery. That's why I put my finger on the screen. Had to dismiss that. This was 21 years ago. I was 7 years old, so the exact mall I don't remember. I want to say it was the Solomon Pond Mall, but it might have been the Auburn one. But I want to say it was the Solomon. Yeah, so I was at either mall, most likely the Solomon Pond Mall, and my grandmother went to a jewelry store, and my great aunt, who passed away about a year ago, she took my cousin and I to a toy store, and we were inside looking at the toys, and I put a toy down that I was looking at, and my aunt and my cousin were gone. I looked all around. I was freaking out. Now, I have autism, and my autism was more severe when I was younger. So I was a 7-year-old boy with pretty much the maturity of a 4 or 5-year-old, autistic boy, looking around, couldn't see my great aunt and my cousin anywhere, and I was just crying, I was panicked, and a bunch of people were just walking around ignoring me. And let me tell you, I was the perfect target for a child predator because I had trouble understanding not to go with strangers. And this man, who I want to say was I want to say he was any age from 37 to 42. It's hard for me to remember what he looked like. I remember him having black hair, medium length, a beard and mustache, and glasses. And he told me to come with him, and he took me to the desk, and he and the cashier watched over me. The cashier looked like she was about 17 years old, like high school, light blonde hair. And the two of them watched over me until my great aunt and my cousin came back around. My great aunt told me that she said that she was going to take my cousin to another corner in the store, but I didn't hear her. So when I first saw she was gone, I was shocked and I was afraid. And God sent that man and the cashier to watch over me so that I wouldn't be abducted or murdered or both. Now, I bet a lot of you, when I first talked about the man, you were probably thinking, "Oh no, what's going to happen?" Nope, God sent that man to protect me. And although his image is rather faded in my head, I still have a vague picture of what he looked like, and I still remember him to this day. Honestly, I wish I could thank him. I mean, I did say thank you, but I wish I could see him again and do something for him. Not sure if he's still alive. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he only looked like late 30s to early 40s. He didn't look too old. I mean, anything can happen. But if he's still alive, I wish I could see him again someday. But him and the cashier probably don't even remember this. It was 21 years ago. I'm sure they've long forgotten it. But I didn't forget that. When you're a child lost at the mall, you don't forget someone who saved you. Even if so many years go by and the image of them starts to become kind of weary in your head, you still remember them. And when I was 20 years old, and I was working at Stop and Shop, and I didn't even believe in God at the time. This is when I was worshiping idols. Cringe. I was working as a card attendant at Stop and Shop. It was February 2017, and I saw there was a truck out on the highway, and I looked and saw that there was a cart in the way of the loading dock, and I thought, I've got plenty of time. I can get that cart. First, I got to get this row of cart inside real quick. So I push that row of carts inside, and then I come back outside, and the truck's still out on the open road. So I run to I turn the corner and run to the loading dock to get the cart out of the way. And I turn around, and the truck is in the parking lot, set in position, and starts backing up. I remember just looking at it going, then I grabbed the cart and ran for my life. It was God who gave me the strength to run in time. I got out of the way of that truck with seconds to spare. I can close my eyes and I can still see that truck almost backing into me, even now, 7 years into the future. God has saved me so many times in my life, and it is this faith in Him that I have is why I believe. Now, I went to public school up until college. I take private college, but all throughout preschool, kindergarten, elementary, middle, and high school, it was all public. And I remember there being mentioning about God in elementary and middle school. Not in high school, no. In high school, we learned about evolution. Thank the Lord, it was only for a week. And they held signs in the hallway talking about pangender and non-binary. And the high school created an LGBT group for tolerance and respect. Except for Republicans, patriots, police supporters, and Christians, of course. Nope, we had all that modern world stuff, but no room to teach about God. It's pretty sad. But because of that, a lot of people who I went to school with, including myself for a time, didn't believe in God. And it's just this teaching that, from high school to a lot of my friends, that humans know what everything is and that everything is comprehensible to humans, and if humans can't understand it, it's not real. The world is controlled by humans. There is no afterlife. Your life is what it is. You're born, you live, you die, and there's nothing beyond that. That's what our high school tried to teach us. And I began to fear that that could be a possibility until I returned to Christianity in 2019. I believe in God with all my heart, and there's a few other people who I went to high school with who believe in God, but sadly there's a lot of others who just followed what the high school taught them, and they just like to say, oh, well, if there's a God, why are there problems in the world? God sends missionaries and faithful Christians and activists and so many organizations to help the poor. And you know what? The people who have been helping the people down south in the southeast and south central from Hurricanes Milton and Helene, most of them are conservatives, Christians, private organizations. These political organizations who claim they care about everybody, the ACLU, the NAACP, Black Lives Matter, they've been doing FEMA, they've been doing little to nothing to help. They don't care. They say with their lips that they care, but when push comes to shove, they back down. I'm going to explain this in a little like a parable I made. It's like two men standing on a pedal boat. There's one person in the water behind them, and that person is struggling to swim to them saying, help me, I'm running out of energy fast, I'm getting tired, please help me. One person on the pedal boat says, we should help him, but we'll just sit here and wait for him to catch up to us. But the other person puts the pedals in reverse, pedals backwards toward him, and then he runs out and reaches his hand and says, come on, grab my hand, I'll pull you aboard. The other person was willing to help, but he didn't back the boat up to shorten the struggler's swim or even reach out his hand to help him. He just stopped moving the pedals and said, we'll just wait here. He'll climb out eventually. What if the man ran out of energy before then? What if a wind gust came and pushed the boat forward and still increased the distance between the boat and the struggling man? The second man, he not only stopped the boat, he pedaled the boat backwards to get closer to the swimmer and shorten his swim. Then that man walked to the back of the boat, stretched out his hand and said, "Come on, grab my hand, I'll pull you aboard." That's what a real Christian does. A Christian does things. They don't just say things. These movements and people who pretend to be tolerant and caring, they're all talk. They talk a good game, but when push comes to shove, they back down because they're in fear of someone having an opinion about them, or them possibly getting hurt, or the reputation being damaged. They care about themselves and the money they make, and they get famous for what they do. All the cameras and all the spotlight goes to them. These people who risk their lives because they care about others and they believe in God's mission, they hardly get any media coverage because it doesn't go with the narrative. But you know what? I think that's the way it should be. The paparazzi and all the camera and fame, all that's temporary. None of it's going to help you in heaven. God sees every good thing you do. And we're not saved by works. That's not what I'm saying. We are saved by faith. But as Christians, we are called to help those in need. Jesus told us to help our neighbor. And that our neighbor isn't just in a geographic sense as someone who lives next door to us or down the street or around the block. Our neighbor is anyone who needs our help. And we, as Christians, should fulfill our duty to help those who need it. And when we help others, God sees that. And He's happy when we do that because He knows we're doing His will. Now, some people believe that you need to do the Lord's will as well as faith in order to be saved. I don't necessarily believe that because that sounds like a works-based salvation to me. You'd spend your life wondering if you did good enough for God. You can't be good enough for God. It's about having faith. But having faith should motivate you to do Christian works and to live by God's will, not your own. Because that's what God tells you to do. And while I believe that as long as you have faith, you are saved, if you don't do the things God's telling you to do, you're limiting the relationship opportunities you have with Him. I will always believe in God. He has helped me so many times through so many endeavors, and I know that there are many more to come. And I am just praying for revival in this country. We got an election coming up in less than 2 weeks, and I am praying for a Republican Christian wave or for Christian Democrats and Christian independents. I am praying with all my heart sincerely for a patriotic and a Christian wave and revival all across the country. And I respect and understand freedom of religion. Not everyone worships God and not everyone has to. But I pray with all my heart that everyone comes to believe in God. Because when you believe in God, life is just so great. And I feel so bad for people who don't want to listen. And that's something I'm going to talk about in another video that I'm going to upload soon. But I think this video has been long enough. And I just pray for every one of you who is new to your journey that you will grow and become strong wheat and not be withered away by tears or by bad weather or by poor soil. And if you're preaching to anyone, I pray that that person will listen to you with an open heart and that they too will become holy and dedicate their lives to Jesus of Nazareth, the Messiah.